Hey guys, just wanted to come on and talk a little bit today about the Alex Murdaugh case, or Alex Murdaugh. I cannot get this guy's name straight, first name or last name, because every time you hear it, someone's pronouncing it differently. So, that guy from South Carolina, the one that killed his wife and son, who now has been found guilty of that. So you can say that, I guess allegedly still though, you know. But so some new information came out from the prosecutor, a new interview. And the prosecutor is very dynamic to listen to in interviews. He's very passionate, but more subdued in an interview than he was in court. But surprisingly, he said that, he didn't really know what the true motive was, but they think that, it was just kind of a thing to throw people off and cause sympathy. So there wasn't one reason, there were many reasons. And I kind of thought that too. That's the only motive I can think of, because just nothing else, no one thing makes sense. At first I thought, that they weren't really proving their case. I always thought that he did it, but I just didn't think that they were doing a great job of proving their case. But then they really came through at the end and explained everything that you might have a question about. And definitely the Snapchat video, it just tells it all, of why are you deceptive about that. And also what did it for me was the whole beside the road incident where he shot himself. I don't even know if he shot himself. I think that they thought that he scraped his head. I heard that somewhere. That was just weird. That was weird, and it shows his way of dealing with things is just to, spin out of control and come up with these stupid ways of, making you kind of look away so you don't realize what he's doing, and it's just a distraction. And him trying to probably get sympathy from the death of his wife and son. Sitting through that testimony about how his son died, I couldn't even listen to that. I don't know how he could listen to that. I think that this is just what I think. I think that his wife died differently than his son because he didn't want to see his son suffer at all. He didn't want to give him a chance to know what even was going on. I'm not even sure that Paul ever even knew what was happening. I think he just did it and he was gone, before he even knew what was happening. But the mother, think about the last moments of her life, what she was going through. She saw her baby, that a grown man, but it'll always be her baby. That's how we feel as moms, with just destroyed on the ground. And it just, the last moments of your life in that deep state of just every bad thing, every bad emotion you can think of. And then I don't know if she saw her husband lift a gun up in those moments and realized he did this to our child. I can't imagine that. So cruel, so heartless. How do you live with that? How do you live with that? and get up there on the stand and lie the way he did, effortlessly, like he's got a lot of practice, and he really wants you to believe him. That's why he got on the stand. And, just no matter who knows he's lying, he's just going to keep lying. It's just like any other killer without a conscience or a criminal without a conscience. They're just going to stand by it. It's just like Amber Heard. You can catch every lie, but no, they still didn't do it. I can't imagine a worse way to die than that. I mean, I can imagine terrible ways to die, but the betrayal, of a person that you've lived with and loved for so long is pretty awful. And, so it was an interesting case, a very, very long case. I could not sit there through the whole thing. It just drug out for too long, but it was interesting. It was interesting to see how, in the Deep South they did it a little differently. Like even the oath they took was, very patriotic and very old school. And what about the snot? The snot, he's just letting it just fall off your nose. There were tissues right there. It's such a show. And calling him Pawpaw, he never called him that in interviews before, and it was suddenly Pawpaw this and Pawpaw that, and Mags. I mean, he never called them that before. So, most of the time when you cry, you make some kind of effort to stop it. And it seems like men a lot cover their face, I guess because they don't want people to see them cry, but he was just there with all kinds of stuff coming out of his face, just leaking snot. It was too much, way over the top. Again, like Amber Heard and her performance, just way over the top. But that's pretty much the wrap up of that. The prosecutor said that he didn't think it was one thing, he thought it was everything. And I agree with that. In the beginning I looked for one, clear, I thought there might be life insurance. I thought something like that because I knew he was in financial trouble. But I really just think it was to be a diversion to throw people off of looking at his crimes. And he stole from his people that he had known before and handicapped people. He might be like a nice bad person, but he's a bad person. That's I'm not bad person, but he is not a good one. I mean, I can't imagine stealing from somebody who was in a car accident and lost use of their limbs, and you're going to take the money that could be used to help them medically. Right there, you're already off to a bad start. So, I hope that the families of the victims that were involved in that are somehow compensated and paid back the money that they deserve and that they're owed. And I hope the family of Mallory Beach, the victim on the boat, also has some resolution and some consequence, that they have some consequence for their daughter. Somebody pay a consequence for their daughter being lost. I can't even imagine. And she was such a beautiful girl with her whole life ahead, and just in a split second, just everything changed. So I really hope the victims and the families will come to some kind of, a small measure of peace. Not that anything will ever fix it, but he is at least where he can't hurt people anymore, and, well deserved. So the prosecutors, I thought, did a great job though, and it was a good trial to watch. It was just just a little too long and too in depth, especially about the finances. But I get why they did it. But yeah, it's an interesting case, and I wanted to know the exact verdict, and I think they did a pretty good job of laying that out. But in the interview, he really stated it, pretty clearly there. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.